Here I am on Shda, my Imperial Operative, in the balcony of my stronghold. I'd like to go over the differences between the classes, how to choose a class and an advanced class that you think you will like. Very difficult to do in the beginning when you don't know a whole lot about what's going on, and you don't have a lot of experience, and you maybe haven't played any other classes, except maybe one you've chosen already. Probably do more than just one video on this. I'll probably forget some things and have to come back and make another video. But here's my first attempt anyway. You basically have ranged classes and melee classes. That's the most basic division. Melee always fight close up, whereas ranged generally want to fight always at range. Ranged classes tend to be weak once enemies get close to them. Some are easier to deal with when in melee range than others. I find the gunslinger a little bit awkward at close range, just personal taste. And I also want you to realize that some classes which may seem to be ranged are actually melee. So maybe I'll even start with the operative, since it's very relevant. The base class for the Imperial Agent Operative is the Imperial Agent, and the advanced class is Operative, or you can go Sniper. They diverge greatly once you choose your advanced class. The classes become very, very different. The Operative does have a rifle. It does have a blaster rifle with a 30-meter range. It does have a grenade. It has a 30-meter range. Aside from that, okay, there's Corrosive Dart, that's also 30-meter range. But basically, all the attacks that it does, and I'm a healer, so I don't have any of the advanced attacks. They're melee range. You're going to be using a whole lot of vibro knife attacks, and you got to be in 4 meters. Lethality will be a little different than concealment, a lot different actually, but it is still essentially melee. With lethality operative, you will have to get close up in order to use some of your abilities. You're going to have to get 4 meters. So it's a very mobile class. A lot of people like it because it's really run and gun, as some people say. You got to get in close, do some attacks, and you can kite the enemy. You can back off and shoot at them while they chase you. But it will be necessary to get in close at times. And if you play an operative purely at range, you're really hurting your damage abilities, because you're just using your weakest abilities. Another one that suffers from that a bit is the Bounty Hunter Power Tech and the Republic Trooper Vanguard. You can increase through utility choices. Your utilities are in the combat proficiencies on the right-hand side. There's a utility that that they have, which I will speak of the Power Tech now. I don't play Vanguard, I do have a Power Tech. It will increase some 10-meter range abilities to about 15 meters. You do have a pistol on the Bounty Hunter that has a 30-meter range on it, but it's really a melee class. If you're going to try to play it at long range, most of your good abilities they're just not going to work. They don't reach. They don't have the range. So you will see frequently people running around on power techs, and they're playing at range. And don't do that. You have some range to use, but like I said, you're going to be within. You're going to want to be 4 to 15 meters. You're not going to want to be 30 meters all the time at all. The sniper is the opposite of the operative in many ways. I mean, it uses medium armor, like the operative does. The main stat is cunning, which is still in the game until that is removed in 4.0 expansion. But it is a 35-meter ranged class. It needs a sniper rifle, not a blaster rifle. It is a very, very stationary class. The operative is very mobile. If you're going to play lethality or concealment, you're going to be running around a lot, especially lethality, because you're going to be running in and out of close range to medium range. The sniper, like the Republic Mirror, the Smuggler Gunslinger, they're probably the most static class in the game. They have a cover ability. Operatives used to use it. It's still within their skill set, but it's completely useless now. Operatives get no benefit from using it, and I just completely removed it from my bars because of that. I just don't need it. I don't use it. It's a waste. It's a little bit awkward to use for some people, and some people don't like it because that is an unusual mechanic. It doesn't bother me too much. I do kind of like the gunslinger, but it is a turret class, as they say. Gunslinger and sniper are probably the ultimate turret class in the Old Republic. When you are forced to stand up out of cover, you will see a pretty big drop in damage. There are some utilities you can take to sort of help lessen that, but it's quite annoying to have to get out of cover when you are a sniper or a gunslinger, because it is really going to drop your damage down a lot. I find them to be the most fun when you're in a group of people, or just with one other person. If you get someone to go in and pull aggro, if you get a tank to jump in and tank enemies, you can lay down a lot of damage on a sniper or a gunslinger. But when you're not left alone to do that, it can be kind of tedious, because you're getting you have to move away and reestablish position, go into cover again, and you have knockbacks and some slows and things. Maybe I'll eventually do a video on playing the gunslinger, which translates to a sniper too. But it is essentially a very, very static class where you stay in one place and just nuke things. The mercenary and the commando, they are ranged classes. The mercenary is the ranged advanced class of the bounty hunter. The commando, the ranged advanced class for the trooper. They're not too mobile. They're a little more mobile than they used to be, but once again, they have a lot of cast times on their abilities, and they tend to be a little bit stationary. If you want to do that, you're not going to run around the whole lot while you're shooting, while you're fighting. You're going to have a lot of times you need to stand still. The smuggler, scoundrel, is like the Imperial operative. It has all the same things. There's a lethality is matched in the smuggler with, now they call ruffian. Used to be dirty fighting. Very mobile, run around a lot. Scrapper is the equivalent to concealment, and it has a fair amount of movement because you don't have a lot of cast times. You have a lot of instant abilities, but it's all close range. I mean, you can, once again, you'll have a pistol on the smuggler, so you can shoot from 30 meters, but if you're a scrapper and you're at 30 meters, you're not doing crap. You really got to get in and start using your melee abilities. As for the force user classes, you will have the Inquisitor, Sith Inquisitor. You will have the Jedi Consular. You will have the Jedi Knight, and you will have the Sith Warrior. Almost all of those are melee, except for the Sith Inquisitor Sorcerer, the Jedi Consular Sage. They are long range. They're casting classes. They're not too mobile. They get some mobility. They have more mobility than I think they used to have. They're not quite as much the turret as the nothing is quite as much the turret as the gunslinger and sniper. They do have, if you want to go DPS, if you want to go range DPS, this is something to think about. The Republic Commando, the Imperial Mercenary, the Bounty Hunter Mercenary, the Jedi Consular Sage DPS, and the Sith Sorcerer DPS do have some minor healing abilities. This is something that some other DPS disciplines do not have. So even if you don't go into the healer discipline, you still get some what they consider off heals. You do get some healing that you can do. The same will hold true while I'm on it for the operative, which is melee DPS if you go DPS, and the scoundrel. You will have some off heal abilities. You'll have some minor healing abilities even if you don't go into the healing tree. You will by no means be a healer, but you will still have some healing abilities. Then for the other advanced classes on the Inquisitor and the Consular, you have the Sith Assassin and you have the Jedi Shadow. They are the equivalent of each other, the mirror of each other. They are primarily melee. They have some 10-meter abilities. They're by no means ranged. They're pretty mobile, especially as you get higher. Like now, for instance, the there's cascading debris, I believe it is called, and depredating volts. These are attacks that the tanks get, that the kinetic combat shadow gets, and the darkness assassin will receive. And you can actually, at a certain point, move while channeling those. They are among the only channeled abilities that exist for those classes. Channeled abilities on melee classes are pretty rare because they're pretty stupid. They really don't make much sense, and they are quite mobile. Unlike their counterparts, the sorcerer and the sage, which are not too very mobile. Then you have knights and warriors. They're all very mobile classes, all melee range. Of course, they use sabers. You can, if you have an interest in tanking, you will want to go into a Jedi Knight Guardian or the Sith Warrior Juggernaut. They each have a tank discipline, and they each have 2 DPS disciplines. If you go Sentinel, Jedi Sentinel, or Sith Marauder, only do that if you want to do melee DPS. You won't ever tank, you won't ever heal. You have nothing of the sort within those disciplines. So they are purely DPS, purely melee DPS. They get some minor CC abilities. These classes get a Force Choke-like ability. It's literally called Force Choke on the Imperial side. They get a Droid Disable, which will disable the droid for 60 seconds. Not too bad. The Force Choke is a short duration, probably 4 seconds, I believe. So if you go into the Jedi Knight or you go into the Sith Warrior, keep in mind you will either be purely DPS if you go the Twin Saber Sentinel Marauder route, or you have the choice of being a tank or DPS if you go the Juggernaut Guardian route. If you go into the Republic Trooper or the Imperial, on the Imperial side, the Bounty Hunter, you will have the choices of going, let's say you go Commando or Mercenary, they are the mirrors. You will have the choice to be either a healer or a ranged DPS. If you choose to go on the Bounty Hunter, if you go into the Power Tech, or on the Trooper into Vanguard, you will have the choice of being either a tank or one of 2 DPS specs, and they are melee range. They are not truly a ranged class. You will get a little bit more range on those than most melee classes get. Through utilities, you can extend that, like I had mentioned before, to about 15 meters. But you're still, you're still not going to be, you're really not a ranged class. If you want to go into the operative, or you want to do, not the operative, I should say the Imperial Agent or the Smuggler, you will have the choice to go either a very static and stationary turret type class. You can go into the Imperial Agent Sniper or the Republic Smuggler Gunslinger, and you will be very stationary at a 35-meter range. Pretty high DPS, I feel, and but that's all they can do. You'll only range DPS. There's no tanking, no healing, no nothing. You're always DPS no matter what discipline you choose. Or you can go into the more melee range, and you can go as an Imperial Operative or as a Republic Smuggler Scoundrel. And there you will have the choice to heal, or you will have a choice between 2 DPS specs. And as I mentioned in another video, when choosing between DPS specs, if you have a choice between 2 DPS specs, one will be direct damage, one will be damage over time. If you have a choice between 3, they tend to categorize it a little more widely. You will have a single target direct damage, mostly direct damage discipline, an AoE, area of effect discipline, where the area of effect attacks are more enhanced, and the 3rd DPS discipline will be more dot-oriented, damage over time-oriented. So I think I'll cover in this that pretty much takes care of the basics of that. I may do some more detailed videos on individual classes for beginners on some future videos, show a little more detail how some of these things play, just basically. And hopefully this gave you maybe a little insight that you didn't have before.